have quorum. So welcome everyone to the Neighborhood Services and Education Committee of the whole. We have a special joint meeting, and we will later recognize some of those folks that are part of this special joint meeting as it begins at 2:30. So we will begin with actually, I have something to read on this. Excuse me for a second. While I make an announcement for our we have translation services today, as there's some folks who are attending the latter part of our meeting and will need those translation services. I believe our city clerk will provide us with a video.
Yes, the translators will not be on until that joint meeting. So at the beginning of the joint meeting, I'll play the video.
Perfect. Thank you. And would you please, Tony, begin roll call for us?
Jimenez, Cohen,
Here.
Esparza,
Here.
Carrasco,
Present.
Arenas.
Here.
Thank you.
Perfect. We have I think, Angel, you are here on as a panelist. Could you, I'm sorry, my items are a little outdated. Could you please tell us what is the first item on our agenda?
So what we have first is we have the review of the work plan. There's a number of items that have been deferred to other meetings given the consolidation of the city-county joint meeting. So that's our first action there. And we would just need a vote to accept that work plan and those deferrals. And then that'll be followed by, we have one item on consent calendar before we get into the agenda.
Perfect. So to accommodate our latter part of our meeting. And I think I heard a motion.
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Perfect. Okay, so moving on to our consent calendar.
We have one item, and that's commission's annual report. and work
I'm
plan.
sorry, did we take a vote? We need to take a vote.
You are here to keep us legal. Of course you are, Karen. Thank you. Yeah, of course, everybody agrees. Please, could we have roll call on this?
Okay, Cohen,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Arenas.
Aye.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Now we can move on to our next item, which is our consent calendar, and this is the Commission's annual reports and work plans. And Angel, you were saying?
Yeah, no, that's actually the consent item, and we have the library here to answer any questions if there are any, but this is on consent. If there are any questions, staff is here to answer.
And let me look at our community. Karen, should we take, even though this is consent, we need to take public comment, correct? On
Yes,
this?
that's correct.
Okay, so before I go to my colleagues, Mr. Beekman, go ahead and begin your comments.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I hope you can. There is some really loud noises going around back there. Can you mute yourselves? Can everyone, thank you. If everyone can mute themselves, or if you can ask that, thank you. I got a really big job to do today. Martha O'Connell has been coming to Rules and Open Government the past few weeks to really demand that, you know, you got to do something about filling at least a few HCDC positions at this time for her commission, because they won't have a quorum otherwise, possibly. It really seems why the waiting to build this commission to put new people on is that we're trying to consider how to bring disability and homeless representatives onto the commission. I know Robert Aguirre still wants the full commission process, maybe Michelle Mashburn too. Are they willing to talk and negotiate this issue with yourselves at this time, as I'm sure they already have? If we can get a few people on the HCDC now to satisfy Martha's needs, that can relieve some pressure. And then through October and maybe into early November, you can haggle out some final arrangements with people like Robert and try to get some homeless people and disability people onto the board. And that would relieve the pressure, give yourselves time to think and work. Good luck how we work on this issue. There's a lot at play, and I just want to hopefully be the messenger and you know what.
Thank
is
you,
possible.
Mr. Beekman. If we can keep it on the Library and Education Commission or the
Oh,
Youth
I thought it was
Commission.
about all commissions. I thought this issue was about all commissions, you know, for a report on the whole commission process. I didn't know that. I'm sorry. Thanks for your patience and time.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Beekman. So I'm going to move on to my panelists, to my colleagues. I don't see any hands, so hopefully we can have a motion.
Move approval? Second.
Perfect. And roll call?
Cohen,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now moving on to reports to committee, and this is item D1. The title of this item is Code Enforcement Management Controls Audit Report, and the report will be provided by our city auditor.
Thank you. So good afternoon, Joe Roy, City Auditor. I'm joined by Shirley Huang from my office to present our audit of code enforcement management controls, improvements, oversight, and coordination needed. So start with just a little bit of background. The mission of the Code Enforcement Division of the Department of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement is to work in partnership with the people of San Jose to promote and maintain a safe and desirable living and working environment. The division aims to improve the quality of life for residents through outreach, education, and enforcement of ordinance in the San Jose Municipal Code, including building and zoning codes. Code enforcement programs are wide-ranging and include general code enforcement, multiple housing, and other special programs. General code enforcement addresses issues such as blight. Multiple housing inspections ensure facilities like apartments comply with the municipal code. Special programs, including massage and cannabis programs, coordinated with the police department, are fee-based programs that regulate specific businesses or issues. The objective of this audit was to review code enforcement management and oversight. It was added to our work plan by the Rules Committee in November of 2020, following charges that a former code inspector assigned to the massage program had used his position for personal gain. Based on City Council's request, we broadly reviewed the timeline of events relating to the city's complaint handling and coordination of the massage program by code enforcement and the police department. We had 3 findings. The first finding is that the city received multiple anonymous allegations of inspector misconduct. In September 2020, a former code inspector was charged with 14 felony charges related to extortion of sex and bribery from massage business owners in San Jose. While the inspector was working with the city received anonymous letters and complaints in late 2018 and early 2019 alleging inappropriate or criminal activity by the inspector. Because of the anonymous nature of the allegations, the city was unable to investigate as there was no way to contact the complainants. In addition, a gap in communication between departments limited the ability of code enforcement or the Office of Employer Relations, or OER, to respond. At the time of the audit, code enforcement's internal incident policy did not provide guidance on how to address extortion, bribery, or other serious concerns. We have a recommendation for code enforcement to revise that policy accordingly. Also, at the time of the audit, the city's whistleblower hotline policy did not document the process for addressing potential criminal complaints. During the audit, the Office of Employee Relations updated its policies to document that process, including ensuring that all departments are notified when appropriate. OER also revised the city's online whistleblower hotline form and instructions to potentially gather additional information, including uploaded documents, to help substantiate anonymous complaints. As part of our work, we reviewed the flow of information around how the anonymous complaints were handled to better understand and make recommendations around that process. We did not conduct a personnel investigation of the former code inspector's alleged criminal activities or assess potential delays and closures of listed massage businesses. To the extent that the council has additional questions, such as those about the inspector's activities, we recommend they should consider hiring an outside investigator under their charter authority. The second finding is that the massage program needs defined goals and responsibilities to strengthen management oversight. In 2015, the City Council passed an ordinance that modified the regulation of massage businesses in San Jose. In 2017, Council prioritized the massage program, also known as the Personal Care Business Compliance Initiative. The police department oversees the massage program in coordination with code enforcement. Program goals include ensuring massage businesses are permitted and operating in accordance with the ordinance, closing illicit massage businesses, and preventing human trafficking. Since fiscal year 17-18, the police vice unit has reported closing over 200 illicit massage businesses. The map on the slide shows the location of illicit massage businesses closed by the vice unit during that time. However, the program has not fully met the intent of the massage ordinance. As of April earlier this year, just 16 massage businesses had an active massage permit, whereas over 200 businesses describe their nature of business as massage on their business tax certificate and may require a massage permit under the municipal code. At the beginning of the audit, there was a limited coordination between the vice unit and police department's human trafficking team. During the audit, the vice unit began notifying the human trafficking team before taking enforcement actions at illicit massage businesses. In addition, the responsibilities of the code inspector and coordination between code enforcement and the police department were unclear and not documented. And we have several recommendations, including developing a roster of massage businesses subject to the ordinance, conducting outreach and posting information online, standardizing the human trafficking's role in the program, clearly defining the code's role in the massage program, and considering backgrounding or use of partners to mitigate risk of high-risk inspections, and finally establishing performance goals, enhancing supervisory oversight of inspectors. Our third finding is that code enforcement can improve supervisory oversight and staff guidance. Following the charges against the former inspector, PBCE created a plan to improve management and accountability in the code enforcement division. Among the action items in the plan are adding a supervisor dedicated to special programs, providing regular training for supervisors, random customer audits by supervisors, and adding contact information online and on business cards for customers to report concerns. There were other items as well in the plan. We also did note that some important elements of a positive organizational culture, such as, for example, we conducted an employee survey that showed that staff feel that division management is responsive to concerns and ideas for improvement, and also that feel their work matters. However, we did identify gaps in supervisory oversight and the need for clarity and expectations for staff. For example, supervisors can better ensure inspectors' work aligns with division policies, and updated policies would help set standard expectations for both staff and supervisors. We recommended creating or updating policies, developing training for new supervisors, and establishing a regular review of a sample of closed cases to ensure compliance with division policies. In addition, we found that the division did not maintain a log of customer complaints, which will be important as they begin to add complaint contact information to business cards and online. There's also no clear performance expectations or targets for case closure rates or timing. Overall, open general code cases have grown despite a decline in new complaints. Finally, at the time of the audit, some staff had not had performance evaluations in well over a year. We also made recommendations to address each of these items, including maintaining a confidential log of customer complaints, revising as one of their standard letters to include helpful information to the customer, developing meaningful performance targets and incorporating them into the performance evaluation process, and completing all outstanding performance evaluations. Our report includes a total of 20 recommendations to improve code enforcement management controls and the coordination of the massage program. We'd like to thank the Department of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement, the Police Department, the Office of Employee Relations, and the City Attorney's Office for their time and insight during the audit process. I ask that you accept this report and cross-reference to the full City Council. We believe the administration has asked that this be for the October 5th meeting of the City Council as opposed to the September 28th, which is in the agenda. So if whoever makes the motion to accept the report, if you please make that note. Happy to answer any questions, and I believe I will now turn it over to Rachel Roberts for the administration's response, or possibly Chris Burton.
Thank you, Joe. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen okay? Great. So we'll be presenting our administration response to the audit of code enforcement management controls. I am Rachel Roberts, the Deputy Director of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement Division. I'm also here with Sergeant Aaron Offenberg with the San Jose Police Department and Allison Suggs, Assistant Director of the Office of Employee Relations. Our administration response, we did either green lit or yellow lit all of the recommendations. We ended up with 14 recommendations we felt that staff could easily implement or readily implement. We had 5 yellow lit recommendations, which we agreed with or substantially agreed with. And however, these recommendations will require time and or staffing and resources to complete. There was the one recommendation, which Joe noted is specific to council consideration. That was recommendation number 2. And so of the 20 recommendations, we did have 5 that we've completed and submitted to the city auditor for review and approval so that we can note those recommendations as completed. And so those were recommendations 10, 14, 15, 16, and 20. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this really has been a collaborative effort, collaborative coordinated effort between San Jose PD and the Code Enforcement Division with support from the Office of Employee Relations, as well as the city's attorney's office and the budget office. Most recommendations can be readily implemented as I indicated. Several will require additional time and or staffing and resources to implement. And the administration will collaborate to clarify roles and responsibilities of the San Jose Police Department and Code Enforcement with oversight from the city manager's office. Resources will be evaluated to inform changes to this massage permit fee. And we anticipate that we will bring forward revisions to the massage parlor fee program and corresponding staffing level adjustments as part of the 2022-23 proposed budget development process. So the 5 recommendations that we have implemented already, I wanted to just highlight a few. The first being recommendations 10 and 14. We've established procedures for regular supervisory and division manager review of cases in the massage and cannabis programs. And this is actually something that we're going to be rolling out across the division, so not limited to just those 2 programs. And then number 16 is to maintain the confidential complaint log related to inspector conduct, including the date of the complaint and how it was handled. So this has already been implemented and is in place. The following recommendations are those we wanted to highlight that will require additional time and or resources and staffing to implement. First being number 3, which is to create a roster of businesses and outreach model to inform the businesses of the program and the ordinance. Number 5, procedure for permit renewal notification. Number 8, which is the considering backgrounding and or partner policy for the massage and cannabis programs. 12, to update the code enforcement policies and procedures. And then number 17, to develop the targets and track code enforcement program performance. So in conclusion, the administration wants to recognize the San Jose Police Department, the City Attorney's Office, and the Budget Office, as well as the Office of Employee Relations for their collaboration and coordination with planning, building, and code enforcement in developing the response to this audit. The administration would also like to thank the City Auditor's Office for their hard work and professionalism through this process, and wanted to acknowledge that we are committed to implementing all recommendations to improve the overall management and oversight and reduce risk for criminal conduct or other unethical behavior. And that concludes my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Does that conclude the presentation as well?
Yes, it does.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to go to our public to hear public comment on this item. And this item is exclusive to this audit, which is the Code Enforcement Management Controls Audit Report. Mr. Soto, I see you are first. Go ahead and begin your public comment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. That report was difficult to listen to because of a lot of the procedures. It's just not what really actually happens in the real world. Number one, when you make an anonymous call, there is no way to get back at you. That's why it's anonymous. You don't want to be identified. So they already have a system that is set up to where here's the information, here's what's going on, and then the police department goes out to investigate. They don't have to get back at that person. But in this report, it says that the reason why there was no follow-up was because they couldn't get a hold of the person. That's the purpose of an anonymous tip. So that's number one. Number two, those 5 recommendations that the city is making, those are standard. My question is, how much money are these code enforcement people getting paid by the city? Number one. Number two, why was that not standard? That is basic. Those 5 recommendations are basic, fundamental to the job. Why is it that that was not implemented in the beginning? These are the questions. I can go to 3 massage parlors right now, and have some sex if I wanted to, right now. So, I mean, all the hookers that were out there on First Street, they was just sailing along, and cops are passing by, whistling, giving peace signs out the window as they passed by the bunch of hookers right down front on First in Virginia. My area where I had to live. So I mean, there's this disconnect between what is said, like, properly with proper language in these meetings, and then what actually happens out in the real world. I'm out in the real world. I've lived in that world. So, I respect, what you guys are doing, man, but those 5 recommendations, that's foul, that's out. That should have already been a part of.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. Seeing that there aren't any more public speakers, I will go back to my colleagues. And I don't see any hands up on this item. So I'm going to take a point of privilege and begin some of my questions. I want to thank you for the presentation, Rachel and Joseph. I think it's the first time I called you Joseph, like you're in trouble. I always appreciate the perspectives that you provide, and the opportunity to really delve into some of the intricacies of some of the issues that we have seen come across the dais at council. And so this is as well one of those items that I appreciate you delving into. Under recommendation 6, I saw, there was a formalizing role of the SVU's human trafficking team with the massage program procedures. And so I'm wondering about the specific protocols with PD and PBCE that need to be sorted out for this recommendation to be fully implemented.
Sergeant Offenberg, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, sorry, I'm coming in here to this. So just to let you guys know, the human trafficking unit just recently took over the enforcement side. So to actually answer Mr. Soto's questions, the investigation part, as far as our surveillance teams, they actually deal with that side of it now. The vice unit does not have the personnel to actually do with the operations there. So we, from the vice administrative unit, we're dealing with the actual permits that are going out. And we're working with permits as far as, I think one of your recommendations, as far as putting out annual notifications for every 2 years to deal with that. To his point, as far as are there massage parlors that are actually conducting these activities, they're inherently dangerous. The gangs run some of these as well. So as far as executing operations on them, it has been difficult. We have been successful in shutting a lot of them down. But we felt that bringing human trafficking in, because there is very much a victim side to this, to actually have them take over these responsibilities as enforcing it, that's where that's going on that. And so that's being transitioned over to human trafficking as we speak. And the vice unit's going to handle more of the administrative purpose, working with code enforcement more closely as far as dealing with what permits, and obviously people that are owners that are coming in and reoccurring with these illegal massage permits. We're going to have a closer look at that.
So it sounds like human trafficking, just as of late, how recent has human trafficking unit taken on this responsibility?
Probably within the last 2 to 3 months. We're still in that transition period as far as personnel, getting it over to them, as far as how they're going to handle their operations. But we no longer are conducting our enforcement actually inside and doing our operations there. They're going to be handling that now.
The vice unit, you said?
The human trafficking is getting.
The human trafficking unit,
Yeah,
okay.
the vice administrative unit is now strictly going to deal with the permits and working with the permit unit as far as getting the list of massage parlors and obviously issuing those permits as well.
Yes, I appreciate that, because I think part of the issue here is the lack of resources, and the source of some of those resources could be these fees that need to be collected on an annual basis and that haven't been collected. And so I think that's crucial. I'm glad to hear that the administrative portion of this is going to be addressed, as well as the enforcement piece. And I'll be honest with you, I am absolutely disappointed that these are some of the conclusions that we've heard from our auditor, because I sit on the Public Safety Strategic Subcommittee and Strategic Support Committee. And this is where we've talked about the closure of a lot of the massage parlors a couple of years ago, dare I say 4 years ago. And when this became a priority area, and when Councilmember Don Rocha left, it continued to be a area of importance for us. And during that time, I had requested at various times on the dais. I requested under Public Safety Committee, and then as well as Council, for somebody to be for the human trafficking and an advocate to be part of that response. I'm really disappointed to see that isn't happening, because there really is an opportunity for us to intervene in this sex work and this sex trafficking, because not everyone is there on their own accord. And so I just think about the almost 200 massage parlors that we've closed, and this opportunity that we had to intervene with a lot of young women and men, but predominantly women, who are utilized in this fashion for sex work. And so I really will be looking for this change to be solidified in a very formal manner. And I consider this area in terms of priority setting, and I opposed it when it came. I opposed the closure of this as a priority setting area. And I'm wondering, and I don't know, Angel or Karen, if we can reopen this as a priority setting item, since it is not by far finished.
Yeah, Chair Dennis, we can explore that. The one thing we have done is we have shifted the reporting back on this issue from PISFIS to this subcommittee. So I think that's going to give us the ability to basically report back on staff's traction on this. I do know that there have been some pretty deep dives facilitated between San Jose PD and code enforcement, also in coordination with the auditor's office, based on these audits that are really taking a very close and serious look at clarification of roles in terms of what San Jose PD does, what code enforcement of PBCE does, as well as identifying gaps, because there are clearly gaps in terms of resources. The fact that a portion of this is not fully cost recoverable, given the danger that people can find themselves in with this matter, we want to somehow disconnect it from it being cost recovery. And we just, bottom line, need to make a formal investment in the resources that we need in order to do this work. That is embedded in our response from the administration. So yes, we could explore reopening it and adding it to the priority setting, but in the meantime, we have made those provisions to bring it back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I know that there's a lot of progress that's been done. And even though it's been in the last couple of months, nonetheless, it's progress, and I am grateful for it. And that's part of the question that I had next is what additional staffing. You just talked about the cost recovery model that kind of stumps us here. And it shouldn't be that way. Also, I know that some of our providers that we contract with, I think under the police department and YWCA primarily, those are the folks that should also be coming to some of these things when there are those kinds of closures. I know predominantly the previous closures were administrative and not all sting type of operations on site. But when there is, I think this is a really good opportunity for us to, like I said, intervene. This is connected really closely for me in our sexual assault arena, because as we all know, sexual assault continues to happen to women. If it's, if you have one incident, research shows that you tend to have a second incident. And research also shows that we tend to, or those women tend to gravitate towards sex work or get recruited into sex work or into intimate partner violence. And so again, nipping part of this in the bud is also nipping part of that pipeline that further exploits women. So I think you've already heard me with this message before. I really am looking to have this in our duty manual changes, in our SOPs, standard operating procedures, for this to very much get integrated and not to change with a change of staff, and to align with best practices. So I'm hoping that maybe we can have a motion and include that cross reference to council as Joe indicated.
I'll move approval and include the cross-reference to council.
Second. Perfect. And Councilmember Carrasco, did you want to speak?
Yeah, just briefly, because I know that there's another committee that we're going to be a part of, but this is I just want to say I support the comments that Chair Arenas just made. I do have a question as to why it's no longer going to PISFIS.
Yeah, Councilmember, that was really an internal decision made around, really connecting this, especially the aspect that deals with the impact that these issues have on neighborhoods, and really the renewed focus by this committee to really focus on that overarching enterprise of really, safe and vibrant neighborhoods. And so, I mean, theoretically, this can go to PISFIS with all other police items. But we just thought that bringing it to this committee would just give it a little bit more attention, a little bit more detail, and really connect it to the impact that it's having on neighborhoods. This can also be embedded in other reports that PD does through PISFIS, so that it's not an either or thing. This can also still be or referenced in other reports there. But here, we really wanted we really believe that this issue merits serious consideration and greater collaboration over and above what code enforcement and PD does. To the chair's point earlier, I think there's an opportunity for more wraparound services. How do we connect the follow-up work, for example, to the county's human trafficking task force, right? Work that's being done countywide. We know that these issues are very transient. You could shut somebody down in this neighborhood, but then they're moving to the next because they're following the money. And the victims in the process, of course, tend to be young women, men as well, but predominantly young women, as the chair has mentioned. So that was really the thinking about it, was to just give it that extra attention and really looking at this more holistically.
Okay. And I agree to some extent. I still wonder whether this should be back at PISFIS, given the nature of the work. I want to address a couple of things though regarding this particular individual that has been arrested. And Joe, he's still in custody and he was extradited from Texas. correct, from our last conversation. That's what I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess I want to address the seriousness and the atrocities that he committed, and just really express my deep concern for I guess the length of time that it took for us to identify, or even for him to be arrested after he, with our badge, on payroll, going out to do the kind of work and duties that we expected him to do, and yet he was actually committing, heinous crimes. And probably most likely, as Chair has just mentioned, in terms of the women who are in these environments, these are very vulnerable women already as it is. And so this guy, who, let's just be very clear, criminal, this guy's a criminal, and he assaulted and allegedly raped individuals who were in situations unable to defend themselves. And so I like some of the recommendations that have been put forward in terms of how to have greater performance evaluations, create a more holistic environment, and hold folks accountable. But I do, I don't want to take the spotlight off of our vulnerable communities. Many of those are young women who see no other choice in their lives at the moment, and Mr. Soto referred to some of the women who are on First Street, or I've seen them on Monterey Road, and these are individuals who have been really pushed into a corner, and not necessarily a life that they would have chosen, having given many other opportunities, and unfortunately women who didn't have a lot of opportunities. So but I do want to focus a little bit on this employee and how we're going to move forward, so that as they're walking into very high risk environments, such as the massage parlors, or even our cannabis distribution sites, how we're really going to keep track of the folks that come in. And I think the question I had asked you, and I don't know if you addressed it, when we do fingerprints, it's meant to have some sort of a background check and to see what they can find. If indeed there's some evidence of misconduct, what exactly is the protocol for the city of San Jose? Do we just not hire anyone who has a criminal record, given that we believe in second chances? What is the threshold? Where do we hold the line and say, maybe not here, or maybe not in this position, while they're exposed to very risky environments, or vulnerable people? I mean, what is our protocol?
So that's a great question. I could try to take the first pass at that. I don't know if Allison wants to jump in. So we reached out to HR to understand that, and we just got a response. That's why I apologize. I hadn't got it back to your office yet. But conviction is not the response from HR is conviction is not an automatic disqualification from employment. So HR will review DOJ records for all applicants and FBI records for certain positions. They look at it for recency, severity, and nexus to the job. There's many variables, and they'll look at it on a case-by-case basis. If there's a concern, they may withdraw a conditional offer, but they really look at it from a case-by-case basis, because, as I said, conviction is not automatic disqualification. They're looking at recency, they're looking at severity, looking at nexus to the job that's at hand, and so it is a case-by-case basis. I can follow up with more specifics. This is what I understand, my understanding right now. I don't know if Allison has anything to add, but I do want to circle back, because I mean, what you're describing, our recommendations, and in one of the items in the improvement plan about a potential pilot for body-worn cameras for some of these police, it really tries to get at that question of working with vulnerable populations. So we have recommendations of using partners for complaint-based or high-risk inspections. So this is something we looked at with other jurisdictions who have similar programs, where they would use code enforcement to help administer a similar massage program. What we found in other jurisdictions that if it was just an annual renewal type permit, someone might go out alone. But anything that's complaint-based, there's high risk that there might be some allegation of some criminal activity. Everywhere else always had a second people, or at least that was generally what we were seeing, is they would never send somebody out alone in those situations. And so that's why we have the recommendation about looking at potential a partner. Now, of course, Rachel mentioned kind of the resource question. It's not like there's another code inspector out there. So it's things to look at in the future, potential backgrounding for the code inspector in these positions. That's one of the recommendations. Partners, the body-worn camera pilot, these are all trying to get at that question of protecting individuals out in the community in these vulnerable populations in these areas.
And so what do you need from the council in terms of either additional resources or partnering with other agencies? I mean, I don't know what the best practices are out there. I'm sure there's other jurisdictions that have already figured this out, or they're also in the same place as us, trying to figure out how to send their employees into those high risk environments. Mm-hmm. I guess I want to understand what the next steps are for that one particular recommendation, because I think that is a great way to make sure that we're protected as an employer and our employees, regardless of what environment they go into. But I think more importantly, that the public feels safe and feel protected, that there is no suspicion of coercion or any other suspicious behavior on behalf of someone who is it's not reflective of our workforce. This was an unethical individual who was a straight out criminal. He was a criminal. No training, no ethics training, cultural appropriateness kind of training, nothing like that would have prevented, in my opinion, what he did. He was going to do it no matter what.
That makes perfect sense. I would defer to Rachel in terms of kind of next steps in regards to those recommendations we have, as well as the body-worn camera question, because they both are designed to address some of that, what you've described.
Thank you, Joe. So as far as that specific recommendation, we are looking at it in those three areas that Joe mentioned. We've already begun the process with the Office of Employee Relations to develop the policy framework to institute the pilot for the body-worn cameras, and your council approved some budget for that in order for us to purchase the equipment that will be needed. So that is in process already. As far as staffing, we as we had indicated in the report, this program currently is not fully cost recovery. So in order to add, what we'd like to do is add a second inspector to the program to give that added level of oversight. We would have to take from our funded general code program, which is significantly understaffed and under-resourced right now. So we don't feel that's something that we can do at this time. And so really what needs to happen first is we need to make our hiring a priority. We currently have 10 vacancies among our code inspectors. Classifications, which is a 24% vacancy rate for the inspector classification. So that would be our first priority, is to make hiring a priority so we can get those positions filled. And then we'd be coming back to the budget through the budget process to ask for an additional position for this program, and as well as a supervisor. So the program's currently suspended for the reasons that I've just mentioned, as well as just going through this process. We felt it was important to first understand how we needed to pivot and revamp that program to ensure that we're moving in the right direction. But that's pretty much what's next on the horizon. As far as backgrounding, that will be determined as we go through the process with PD, as far as what code enforcement role will be going forward. But right now, the plan is that it'll be very administrative. It's just going to be related to the permit application process. Each year they have to have a compliance inspection and then responding to complaints. But if there's anything, any allegations of any criminal activity, that would be referred straight over to PD. So the backgrounding will be determined based on that role once it's finalized in our MOU with the police department.
Okay. Well, thank you for the report. I'm just as troubled by it, and it's unfortunate that we have to move in this kind of other direction in order to keep folks safe. But thank you, Joe, and thank you, Rachel. Shirley's on there as well. Thank you so much for the report. That's it, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Carrasco. Councilmember Esparza.
Thank you. I'll be super quick. I know we're on a time schedule. I look forward to having this discussion more at council. And so a heads up, I'm going to ask a lot of questions about the resources, Rachel, that you mentioned and that are referred to in the audit report. I think that is the council needs to have a discussion about that, particularly as we have our second bite of the apple coming up in October as we talk about budget, because this is a decision that we need to make at the city council, that it's our responsibility to allocate the resources that are needed. And it's as appalling today as it was then. It's as painful to hear about this as it was when it initially came to light. And so I do look forward to having those discussions. So very quickly, I'll say the second thing, which is I also have concerns about not including PISFIS in this. I think I understand sort of the rationale, looking at that heat map. You can certainly see District 7, and I'll tell you, it's not a mystery where these massage parlors are. And there's, while I do believe and support the coordination with human trafficking and on the vulnerability of the folks who are being trafficked, the fact is that there's a lot of crime that goes along with this. And so I do think that this needs to be cross-referenced with PISFIS, and I'm happy to include that in the motion, to amend my own motion, if that's okay with the seconder, because I think our focus is on the neighborhoods, it's on the system. The council, when we're all 11 of us are together, are there to talk about the budget, and then PISFIS is there. And so we each have our sort of different angle to coordinate all of the work on this. And so I'm happy to amend my own motion if that's okay with the seconder. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Really great questions from my colleagues. I know that we are very passionate about this item, and we look forward to seeing the progress on this and working together. So this concludes this item. I'm going to move into public open forum. And
should we vote, Chair? Madam Chair?
Gosh, I keep forgetting to vote. Karen, you were just about to look at me to vote.
And Councilmember, just a point of clarification. If the committee prefers, this can be redirected back to PISFIS as it originally was on the agenda, and we can also continue to do the additional follow-up as originally planned. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to come to two committees. It may be more effective if we just went to one committee. So, you know, we're perfectly fine with redirecting this back to PISFIS if that is the choice of the committee.
I would support that only if we reopen this as a priority setting, because I'll be honest with you, Councilmember Esparza, when I was on PISFIS and I said, no, let's not close this, I got some resistance on that. And so I don't want the committee to continue to review this as a closed priority setting area, and so that we can actually have resources behind it.
So Madam Chair, would you prefer that it stay mainly with NSE, but it be included in the PISFIS reporting as well? Because you're on both, so
Yeah, listen, I'm fine with it being in either one. I just want to make sure that you knew and Angel recognized that we need to reopen this priority setting. Maybe you could include that piece in your motion to reopen the priority setting for the closures of the massage parlors.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to reopen the priority setting for the massage parlors. If that's okay with the seconder, then that can be the motion that we vote on.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Now we can vote.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure, Councilmember Jimenez, we do have to end this meeting as we have the following meeting at 2:30.
Right.
We need 5-minute intermission.
It's totally understand.
Sorry.
So we're cross-referencing this to the full council. So
Yes.
then is it going to PISFIS or is it not?
It sounds like it's, yes, it's
It is, right?
going to be routed to PISFIS.
Would it go to PISFIS before popping up to the council?
That I'm not clear on. Angel?
No, it wouldn't. This would be cross-referenced on October 5th, this report here, but follow-up items, follow-up reports on the audit progress would then go to PISFIS.
Okay, all right, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So now we really vote.
Jimenez,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Esparza,
Yes.
Carrasco,
Aye.
Arenas.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so now we are going to move to open forum. And Mr. Beekman, go ahead and begin your comments. I'm going to reduce the time limit to 1 minute since we are going to transition into the second part of this joint meeting. And just for the sake of giving our city clerk some time in between the meetings to set up. Mr. Beekman, go ahead.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks for the meeting today. You know, this is a time of 9/11 issues and worries. I just wanted to thank yourselves that we all seem to be making efforts to want to learn how to listen to all parts of the community and their opinions and ideas. I think if we do that, that will be addressing very well the failures of 9/11. I hope we can learn how to talk specifically what happened on the day of 9/11. I hope that kind of conversation can learn to be more open instead of blaming others, other countries, other persons from other countries. With that all said, we're trying to practice good open democracy here at this time. Thank you for that. I hope you can continue those good efforts. We all can this fall with good factual items, and it's nice to be around here at this time. We're trying to clean up in the events of VTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beekman. Go ahead, Mr. Soto.
Yeah, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. Yes, thank you. Thank you for a good productive meeting. I think there some ideas have been crystallized, and I'm glad to hear that they're going to be implemented. My issue is around Gary Dillabo spent $300 million, an unprecedented amount of money in a 90-day period, and it was all downtown. Okay, and he brought up some opportunity zones, and that's the topic of what my concern is. Eric Hayden abused opportunity zones by buying that building downtown. Okay, Chris Burton, Eric Hayden, Gary Dillabo, they're all in it together. Okay, and at minimum, those types of meetings that are going on between Chris Burton and those developers is unethical, because they have pending approvals before him. That's number one. Number two, though, it's actually criminal, because this dude, Eric Hayden, is over there buying an opportunity zone, and there's a very specific criterion for an opportunity zone. And what both him and Gary Dillabo have been doing is abusing that, all with paralysis permission.
Thank you, Mr. Soto. That concludes the first portion of our Neighborhood Services and Education Committee. We will continue in 5 minutes to provide enough time for our city clerk to transition into the second portion of this meeting, which is the joint meeting with the county. And we will see all of us back, the majority of us back, and my colleagues, I ask you to please log back in no later than 2:35.
Chair, is this the same link?
It is the same link, yes.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.